I want to talk a little bit about domain names, choosing a domain name, and finding domain names a little bit. I've got here a tool called instantdomainsearch.com. It's an awesome tool. When you go about looking up domain names, every time you type in a character, you can see how it will go out and search for it, see what's open. You can see here this monkeysworld.com comes in at $20,000. And what we call these are cyber squatters. They're people that go through and they pick up domain names in bulk that people might want someday. It's kind of like real estate where you can pick it up, pay the $12, $15 a month, and someday maybe somebody might want it and you can sell it for $3,000 or $20,000 or something and then make all that money back and then some, right? You can see here I've got some examples of some domain squatters. You can see some of these are going as high as 3 million, 1 million, different things. But a lot of them really aren't. A lot of them are just a few $1,000s. You can see on this site these are all potential company names. That might be 1,700 or something like that. But this is definitely one way you can go find good names or good words for your company. But in our reality, it's much harder than that. I've got an infographic here that talks. This is targeted towards bloggers, but I think a lot of its things, a lot of its principles can come back and apply for anybody that's looking for a website. So typically we do want to find a .com. People just don't go out to a .app or .blog or all these new TLDs that are out there. Even the .net and .org aren't as much, and the .coms are without question. You can kind of treat them like real estate. You do want it short and sweet. As you can see here, most people would want to type in something memorable. I think it's important to think about using keywords that might describe your business if you can't get your business name. Something that they'll remember if they see it. Avoid hyphens as you look for your domain names. Long string of words. You probably don't want over a 3-word domain name. You want to avoid obscure terms, using different syntax, ampersands, or different things in your domain name. Stay away from subdomain names. I know a lot of businesses that will use like a something.wordpress.com or like a Wix or Squarespace or something subdomain. You want to get away from that and actually keep the domain name and obtain that intellectual property of your business. I see a lot of people that will use Z's for S's or some kind of creative, clever way of building a domain name that they might be able to purchase because people aren't using that way. The problem is your customers probably won't think that way and end up getting a competitor or somebody else with another. They'll type in the correct way of it. So stay away from abbreviations, acronyms, jargon, things like that. We talked a little bit about all the good names are taken. Don't be a cheap skate. You can go out there and purchase domain names, more premium domain names. Make it easy to type. Think local. I know sometimes I'll focus on a lot of content. I'll use like Southern Utah something or St. George something, and that will target those local keywords so you show up a little bit more that way. So if you have a brick and mortar business, that's a good thing that you can utilize and will help find available domain names. You also want to make sure that your social media is open, and you can obtain that intellectual property as well. You want to avoid legal conflicts and copyright issues. I always think of the example from years and years ago. Some guy had a computer company. His name was Mike Rowe. We're not talking about the Dirty Jobs guy, and he called his company Mike Rowe, his name, and then Soft, and got in a big legal battle with Microsoft for years and years, and won because that was legally his name and he could use that. So, look at some of those copyright issues and make sure you stay away from from those. You also want to protect yourself from scammers. Often when you buy a domain name, you can hide your private information so people can't get at it. So for example, we'll come here. We have this service called the Whois service, and you can get it through different registrars. But GoDaddy's, for example, here, all we do is just type out a domain name. For example, type out dixie.edu and I'm not a robot, and it will show you the person who purchased it and their email address and phone number and address of where it is. And you can literally see, when it was, originally purchased, when it will expire, when it will be updated, things like that. And so that's all really important information you can get at. Now, if you do select that you want to have that hid, you can do that as you're purchasing your domain name. And maybe we'll look at that here in a second. So another thing you can do to help find domain names is use a service, a domain name generator. Here's one I've got here, Dot-O-Mator. You can type out a keyword. Maybe we type in monkey here, and I want to put in, I don't know, monkey friends or something, and I'll hit that, and you can see all the available ones that are open and look at which ones are taken. And so you can kind of help, maybe you want to use something like this to generate a domain name that might be available, for your business. So that can definitely help out. Now, domain names in general are somewhere between maybe $12 to $15, what I've seen. There are services, Namecheap here tends to be a little bit cheaper than some of the others, but you could go out and type in, some domain name, and it's, typically going to be a little bit cheaper with these guys. You can see they're selling it for $8 a year. Often they will list it really low, and then over the next year or something like that, they'll jack the price up a little bit. You can see, I don't know if I've got it on here. Sometimes, when you look at, they're not showing it on here, but other services will have introductory prices where maybe you're paying like $2 or $1 for the first year, but then they'll raise that price and get their money back that way. I'm going to add that to my cart and check out on this one. You can see the ICANN fee there. But we have this thing called the WhoisGuard, and that's kind of that private thing. So often a service will try to upsell you. They'll maybe have a cheap domain name, and then they'll give you that WhoisGuard or some other little services for extra money. You can see here they're offering a SSL cert. We'll talk about those for $3 a year. That's pretty good. And that's kind of how that works. So you'd purchase that, and they go out and they interface with ICANN. Now, if you remember from a previous video, they're the company that oversees all the domain names and TLD's distribution. But ICANN's the one they're going to talk to. And there's a lot of these different registrars, again, GoDaddy and Bluehost and just a lot of these that are out there. And so that's kind of the way we go about finding available domain names and generating them, and things you need to think about when you pick a domain name and do that.